Hello and welcome to this session of Govconversations where we'll be talking about the 6 guidelines to create an accurate EAC. I'm Kim Koster and I'm a Senior Director specializing in Project Portfolio Management, and with me today is Kathy Boatwright. She's the Director of Product Management specializing in our cost management tools. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you, Kim.
So, Kathy, estimates at complete and creating an accurate forecast is a very, very important business process. What's really the first step in creating that accurate forecast?
Well, it's the same with any project, but the first step is really to get an accurate baseline in place. You have to have a good project management baseline. So really that talks about the big 3, right? Scope, schedule, cost. Really it means getting all the scope of your project into a good baseline, making sure that it's time phased, so that you know the resources that you're going to be working with. You need to make sure that it's tied to some type of a work structure, a WBS structure that has the actual deliverables that you're going to get out of the project. And it really needs to be integrated with your integrated management system. So having a good baseline in place is the first thing. So that's going to give you the ability to be able to track to it. So you need to have some process in place with your baseline so that you know how it's changing over time, how the work's changing over time, or how your execution of that work may be changing over time. And then really it becomes sort of the standard that you're going to be tracking yourself to against what we're calling your EAC, which is your estimate at completion. So that is, how are you really executing the work? So you have your plan, and then you have your working schedule that you're comparing the two against each other.
Kathy, just in case people don't know that are watching, can you define exactly what an estimate at complete or an EAC is?
So sure. So your estimate at complete is where you're planning on finishing your project. It is your actual cum to date plus any remaining work going forward. And the combination of those two things, actuals plus your forecast, is your estimate at completion. And it really allows you to have insight into some important things. It allows you to know, are you going to make your date? So I'm looking at my forecast. Where have I trended so far? How am I going forward? And am I going to meet my end date? Do I have the right resources? So I have a time-phased forecast, just like I talked about the time-phased baseline. It's really going to allow you to make sure that you have the resources within your organization to accomplish the work that you have planned. Or maybe you need to outsource. So it gives you some good visibility into what needs to happen on your project going forward. In addition, your estimate at completion is really going to make sure that you're lining up with your management goals in terms of how those resources are allocated to you. So there are lots of projects happening within an organization, and having an accurate forecast is going to help your company look at your project against other projects, and make sure that you have the right people to accomplish the work and the right mix within the project portfolio within your organization.
So, Kathy, what really are the characteristics? You see a lot of different customers and you've worked in the field. What are the 6 characteristics of a good EAC? What should it have?
So the first one I keep hitting on, which is to have it be time phased, right? You want to be able to see how exactly are you planning to accomplish the work period by period. So you really need a good time phased forecast going forward to compare against your original baseline plan. In addition, you really want to have it at a resource level. So you need to make sure that you have the labor, the material, any direct type of labor, direct type of costs on your project, time phase, and that those resources are very visible. In addition, it needs to be integrated with your schedule. So you're executing the work using your schedule, and you're collecting the costs really and looking at them with your cost system and your earned value management system. And so having that tie into the schedule and the cost system is critical. In addition, you want to make sure that it accounts for any contingency or risks. So you should automatically include any risks that you might have on the project in your EAC, as well as maybe you're taking advantage of opportunities and leveraging those as well. So any contingencies, positive or negative, should be included. It should also include rate differences. So what customers really should be looking at is, am I doing the work for more or less than I planned, or am I actually working more or less than I planned? And that rate usage is really important. So you can do things like look at rate escalations over time and how those will impact your project, and do some different sort of what if, which leads me into the next. You should be able to compare what if scenarios. So you should be able to say, here's my forecast, here's my estimate at completion, and what if something happens? And be able to compare those things to give you really good visibility. What if my rates go up? Or what if I outsource? Does that provide me some opportunities, not only on my project, but maybe to free up resources within the portfolio of the company? So you should have a system in place that really allows you to do good what if analysis on that estimate at completion. And then really the last one is to look at top-down planning. So you should be able to back into a number. So if there's a particular target that you're trying to meet within your project, you should have a system in place that allows you to say, okay, well, what resources are going to be required? What am I going to have to do on my project in order to meet that? Maybe I need to, like I said, outsource, or maybe I need to bring in some more people internally. Maybe I need to hire a different talent than I have right now. So being able to do that top-down planning and look at, here's where I'm trying to end up, and what does that mean for me in terms of getting there is important, and comparing that to where I'm actually looking at today.
So we know that doing an EAC and having an accurate forecast is really an important business process. What are some of the benefits that government contractors get when they actually have an accurate forecast and do a robust forecast process?
Well, I mean, having an accurate forecast is critical. I mean, not having an accurate forecast, an accurate estimate completion on your project is like going somewhere that you've never been before without a map, right? It's going to allow you to know where you're going. It's going to allow you to know how you're going to get there. Are there any obstructions in the way of getting there and achieving your goals? And maybe what are the alternate routes? So I can see, you know, is there a different way to go that maybe will get me a better outcome? So really, it's the ability to predict outcomes. It's a huge benefit. Also, again, we talk about alignment with corporate goals. Make sure that your staffing is right. Make sure that the resources are in place. So it gives you good visibility and insight early before you run into a problem. It helps you leverage opportunities and avoid risks on your project. And then lastly, it keeps you competitive. So really, if you want to have a competitive company, you want to be competitive on bidding and executing projects, you need to have a good estimate in place. And in doing that, you're going to have great outcomes and you're going to have delighted customers. So it's really critical.
So Kathy, it really sounds to me like the EAC is the GPS for the project.
Absolutely, that's a great way to put it.
All right, great. Well, thank you. It's been a very informative session.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.